South Africa is entering its third year under a state of emergency. But in the black townships, rent strikes and other forms of protest go on. However, the real power of the black community lies in its ability to bring normal commerce to a standstill. Last month, an unofficial 3-day work stoppage turned bus depots into open spaces. And train stations became the exclusive property of the security forces as black commuters as well as railway staff stayed at home. The mass work boycott led to whites doing jobs normally done by cheap black labor, and many of South Africa's cities resembled ghost towns. Challenges to the government's policies are coming to a head. In response to a new restrictive series of anti-trade union legislation, the powerful Metal Workers Union is balloting its members on a call for strike action. The vote is expected to be in favor of industrial action, which will align them with the mine workers who are already in dispute with the Chamber of Mines. Government officials monitor the ballot count, and the black unions are expected to face mounting pressure in the coming weeks. Mike Hanna reports.
In central Johannesburg, the nerve centre of South Africa's giant mining industry, the headquarters of its controlling body, the Chamber of Mines. The link between management and the black miners, Cyril Ramaphosa and other delegates from the National Union of Mine Workers. For the past 3 weeks, the union has been engaged in an annual round of negotiations with the industry bosses. On the agenda, wage scales and working conditions. But the union is adamant that it must also advance the political aspirations of its members.
And the pressure that we are going to put is not only directed at management, obviously. It is also directed at the regime, because the apartheid system has to be destroyed. And for it to be destroyed, the unions, the working class in this country has to take massive action to ensure that we bury apartheid once and for all.
But the political stance of the unions has led them into direct conflict with the government. April 1987, and the offices of the Congress of South African Trade Unions, to which the Mine Workers Union is affiliated, under police siege. It was part of a nationwide crackdown on the federation, which in the 2 years of its existence had grown into the country's largest union movement. Piles of documents were confiscated and dozens of union leaders detained.
There are layers of leadership in eng.sot that will always replenish any removal of, let's say, the top leadership within eng.sot. And one thinks that one is probably dealing with, in eng.sot alone, somewhere in the region of 15 to 20,000 trained shop stewards. I think one's looking at an organization that will be very, very difficult to remove by the ordinary processes of banning and detentions.
But now, according to the union, black workers face a new threat. Before Parliament, a labour relations bill which the government says restores the balance of industrial relations in favour of the employer. But eng.sot argues it substantially limits the right to strike, opens trade unions to civil action for losses incurred during work stoppages, and outlaws secondary strike action. The response? A nationwide 3-day boycott by black workers. The only avenue the union claims that those with no political voice can use to make their protest known. But some employers reacted strongly. These workers were fired by a transport company and are now looking to the union to advise them what action to take. What is clear here is that not all obeyed the boycott call out of choice.
When you go to work, they kill you, sometimes they burn your car or your house, so that's why we stay at home.
But still the majority view that the boycott was necessary, an awareness that the withdrawal of labour is the most potent weapon the voteless worker has in a political dispute, and the acceptance by some in government that political unions are inevitable.
And it follows only naturally, to my mind, that in the absence of similarly acceptable structures for political expression, that there will be the inclination to use the trade union movement and trade union leaders to express political views. I think it is a natural development, but it can be reduced to the extent that other channels for political expression are established which have credibility and which are acceptable.
The regime is now making it possible for legitimate organizations to start using illegal methods to achieve their goals. Hitherto, the unions have been concentrating on using legal methods and going through all the legal channels that exist in this country. But the regime is closing up all those legal options that we have. And the only other way out for us is also to engage in illegal work.
I would go as far as to say that law and order and operating within the framework of the laws, even though one might not agree with them, is an essential prerequisite also for collective bargaining and for establishing labor peace and stability in the workplace.
With many organizations outlawed, the workplace is now increasingly becoming a political rallying point. The dilemma facing the government is how to control this activity without curbing the free relationship between employer and union that helps keep the wheels of industry turning.